I wish I stood out more. I honestly feel like
you got STDs going on rare.
What is this?
You wanna come try me? Come try me. How about that?
Natalie, I gotta be honest, you are so disgusting.
Hi everyone! Today we are revisiting someone who has been talked about quite a bit on my channel, but not for the last little while. But we are going to be talking about Jeffree Star in the format of Where Are They Now, Jeffree Star? Because Jeffree would like us to believe that he's an unproblematic queen and everything has gone over much better than it actually has, and in turn wants us to think that he's not doing a bunch of bad things. And this is me going over pretty much only the bad things because that's all that's really been happening. But first, links, sources, ways to support the channel, including Amazon, Patreon, YouTube memberships, all down below, including a contact email as well, and all of my social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, the 9. So I recently thought that Jeffree Star was sort of moving in silence since the end of the recent Shane Dawson series and moving from YouTube to TikTok. But it was very naive of me to think that Jeffree Star would not cause a horrific scene and be insanely problematic in every circumstance that he kind of finds himself in. And of course, I was wrong. So we're going to get into everything that's been going on. Makeup today, by the way, request of my mom. So Mom, I did it. Thank you. We did it, Joe. Parts of the video. 3 parts, post-2020 cancellation, Shane series, and the fallout from that, as well as this dating straight men thing. I don't go into Jeffree's car accident that much. He had a car accident in, I believe, 2020 or 2021. There wasn't much to say about that. There was a lot of speculation that he lied about it, but I just didn't really want to get into it. I thought it was a bit petty to get into that. Part 2, HairbyJay, Trisha, and the second Shane Dawson series. And part 3, moving to TikTok and TikTok Livefest. But before we get into all of that, I want to thank the sponsor for today's video, Aura. There was a little bit of a mix-up with the link that I say in the video, so just keep in mind that the actual link is aura.com/Rhetoric. It's on screen right here, right now, and will also be on screen when I'm doing the read. Just to let you know, thank you. So much of our personal information exists online. Even a simple Google search of your name or email can expose places where your information is being sold online. This is because of people who are called data brokers, which are essentially just people whose job it is to sell the information that you have and give it to people who want to use it for one reason or another. Sometimes this is for, and oftentimes it's for, spam calls and email phishing and things like that. Aura is a service for United States residents to access a wide range of online security services, including a VPN, credit security check, and opt-out requests for phishing emails and data brokers and things of the like. For those of you who don't know, data brokers will sell your information to other companies in a way that is not always favorable to you. And to have these automatic opt-out requests, you can be opted out of your information being sold even at times where you didn't even know it was sold in the first place. While I personally do not have access to this information being Canadian, I do continue to work with Aura because I believe in the service, and I've even received positive feedback from subscribers who have tried it themselves. Cleaning out all your information online with Aura will not only help with getting control over your personal information and who has access to it, but will actually in turn reduce the amount of spam that you get and the risk of being hacked when your information is just floating around in the internet universe. Try it out with my link, aura.com/MikaSF, in the description to access a wide variety of services that Aura provides, from the antivirus, VPN, password management, as I've already mentioned, as well as there's parental controls as well if that's kind of your thing. And there's even identity theft insurance and even more all in one place. My link will allow you to access a 2-week free trial. You're more than likely using one of these services already or more. So with Aura, you have the tools to secure yourself all in one place and get control over your privacy and your information online. So try your free trial today with the link aura.com/MikaSF. Thank you again, Aura, for supporting the channel once again. I'm happy to work with you. Let's get right into the video. So part 1, post-2020 cancellation, Shane series, and dating straight men. I've been covering Jeffree on my channel since 2020. The first video on the channel is actually the Rhetoric of Jeffree Star, which I feel like I might remake later this year. I was gonna do it for this, but then I needed to dip my toes into everything he's been doing since then, and saw that it was more suited for a video of this format. I feel like these videos, I need to provide a timeline for any newcomers and to contextualize how far we've come since the peak of Jeffree's career. The end of 2019 marked a all-time career height for Jeffree Star, as well as Shane Dawson. This is after one successful Shane Dawson documentary series with Jeffree, and then a return for the second series where they were developing the Shane Dawson Conspiracy Collection at the same time with Jeffree Star Cosmetics. In November 2019, Jeffree and Shane released the Conspiracy Collection, which had one of, if not the most successful makeup launches of all time. And right as the major palette relaunch was happening, the technically second restock, but it was the first full-on restock because it got postponed because of COVID-19. We got what was referred to now as Carmageddon or Dramageddon 3, which was all you could see online. That is where you also get Shane Dawson's infamous Instagram live where it's like Tati and he's like, you're lying. He throws that whole fit. That's in there. I'll put a little clip of it in right now.
So how is it that so many editorial outlets knew that something was coming before I had...
Because you message drama channels! Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
So we know what happened there, but if you don't, there are so many videos on it that can go over that. And actually comment down below if we want like a Rhetoric unpacking of each of the Dramageddons as a sort of like 3-part series kind of vibe. I feel like that would be pretty interesting, especially because it seems like what was being accused in the first Dramageddon versus the third one were two very different levels. And I could really get into like the unpacking of that whole thing. After this, Jeffree Star, I think, was trying to kind of distract everyone from what was going on and started parading around with a man named Andre Marhold, who some kind of just accused of wanting to clout chase off of Jeffree Star. Jeffree Star was trying to be like, see, the professional athletes in my DMs are real, because he's always been saying that like, oh, I hook up with so many like famous rappers and NFL players and all this kind of stuff. And there doesn't seem to be any proof that this has ever happened even once. And Jeffree's like, well, my big thing is I don't expose and I don't tell anybody. But it's like, when you've allegedly this has happened hundreds of times, you don't think one person would have slipped eventually. This was because that sort of ethos, I think. And it turns out Andre Marhold like played in like a British basketball league or something, like wasn't actually really that famous at all. And I think it was just Jeffree trying to push this narrative that he always saying that he's just like pulling straight guys all the time, because this was shortly after his relationship with Nathan Schwant ended. I think that's how you say it. And that Nathan was allegedly straight. But then you can't be straight, I feel like, and you're dating a man for 5 years and like having relations. It doesn't make sense. I feel like Jeffree just wants, there's this like kind of border, like essentially kind of homophobic stereotype and this thing that perpetuates a lot of fear with homophobia, that like gay men are like always trying to prey on everybody, and especially straight guys, and that's why they all get like freaked out. And I feel like Jeffree's really forwarding that with this sort of like persona that he's always trying to push, that he's like the straight guy catcher. Many thought at the time that Jeffree Star was using this man as a distraction from his declining brand. This is because from 2018 to 2020-ish, you could not get your hands on a single Jeffree Star palette if you were not trying to get that thing right at launch. There were palettes on Macari being sold secondhand, like things were going off the shelves, like they were online, but you know, in figuratively, I guess, very, very, very quickly. And when this Shane Dawson palette relaunch, restock happened, something that prior to this, even weeks before, people were talking about and waiting for months and months, didn't even like sell out. And actually later, about a year later, I believe, those same palettes were on the shelves of, those palettes were on the shelves of Nordstrom Rack and places like TJ Maxx, which Jeffree Star famously made fun of Kat Von D for her makeup being in there.
So we're gonna have to investigate. What's over here? I'll be over here.
Also in 2020, like very early 2020, Jeffree Star moved into this like mega mansion in the hills, and he actually sold it in 2020 and moved to Wyoming to have a yak farm. There are many speculations as to why he did this. People think it was a mix of a few things. 1, taxes are high in California. Running a business there is expensive. 2, Jeffree's rapid decline of sales and YouTube views means that there could be problems with affording this substantial business in this place. 3, Jeffree wanted to avoid income tax and move somewhere where he also might not be like as recognized out and about, especially because he has been very controversial. 4, the yak farm aesthetic at the start, like prior to selling meat, kind of held up this pseudo-environmentalism, like vegan thing that Jeffree kind of had tried to push with his brand throughout the years. And this this was also kind of proven true because when Jeffree Star started selling yak meat, people got really mad about it. Not too much happens for the rest of the 2020 year, and it just was kind of Jeffree Star trying to like revive his YouTube channel and bringing back things like the Jeffree Star Approved series in order to do so. There were a couple more small dramas, such as Jeffree accusing Audrey Marhold of stealing stuff from him when they broke up and being very messy, Shane and Jeffree not being seen together despite being besties, and things of the sort. Pretty mild stuff. But with that, we're going to move into 2021 and part 2. So part 2, HairbyJay, Trisha Paytas, and the Shane series part 2. That was in 2022. But so once again, I like to take every opportunity I can to bring it up. But in September of 2020, Ethan Klein and Trisha Paytas began the Frenemies podcast. On the 17th and 18th episode of Frenemies, so this was going into 2021, which is now only available, the 17th episode is only available as a re-upload because that is the one where Trisha alleges that she had this teacher that SA'd her, but there was no actual proof. And she also claimed that like he watched CP and was arrested, but no one could ever find the records of this. And the man had passed away pretty recently. So people were not jiving well with that. But there was no records, even public. And in the United States, a lot of that stuff is public. Trisha that year also went on a trip with Jeffree Star, HairbyJay, which is Jeffree Star's hairstylist, and the drama channel Rich Lux to go to Vegas. And this trip seems to have gone well at the time, but however, it later came out that the trip was essentially just Jeffree making fun of people that were poorer than him. And he bullied Trisha on the trip, threw her designer sweater in the garbage, apparently made fun of both Trisha and his employees, were calling her boring. She wouldn't go to the clubs, making fun of her for drug abuse problems, doing a bunch of really vile things. Oh, telling Trisha to jump off a balcony. And then we get the infamous HairbyJay rant on Instagram Live, where he was extremely like weird and aggressive.
He's so fucking lucky he does not air this out.
That one just hurt a lot. Even, like I said, take away what the guy told.
You know what's the problem?
What?
It's people get upset when they have something good and then they do something stupid. You get me?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine having that person in your life and then that person's not in your life.
Yeah.
Because you were so stupid. You were so out of it. Out of it. You were a boring time. She sat down through the whole concert. She sat down because supposedly her feet, first of all, she didn't know Mariah Carey is because the only person she knows is Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. She sat down through the whole concert because her feet, because she couldn't stand. You get me?
They said behind my back, what my skin, my weight, whatever. It was the overall feeling that I got when I was there.
We talked about your skin, but your skin looks like shit till this day, a whole year later.
And Frenemies talked about this as the fallout kind of happened in real time. And this point, Frenemies had brought Trisha a newfound credibility that I don't even think has really gotten back to this day. And even more people, because it was also still pretty recent to like the mass cancellation, were more than willing to accept this as fact about Jeffree's character. Then Jeffree pretended to fire HairbyJay in a post that said, "Good morning, except the guy who used to do my hair." But not too long after that, he was back to being tagged in Jeffree Star's Instagram posts. We need to remember the power that Trisha and Ethan had at this time. And they essentially were able to end the career of the Vlog Squad. So having furthering the hammer onto Jeffree and Shane, who are already not well viewed in the public eye, really showed you the truth of their character. And I think something else is you can see on the episode that it clearly affected Trisha at the time based on how she was reacting, even just talking about it.
This is an evil person. And what they said to me is yeah, we have to slowly distance ourselves and all this stuff like that. And they're promoting him still. And so I don't think cancel Jeffree because he told me to jump off a bridge or told me I had bad skin. But it's Shane, my best friend, should at least maybe not associate with him publicly. If you need to get that check from your palate, fine. But to not only that, but he would encourage me to not make videos about Jeffree. Don't make videos about Jeffree and all this shit. Just I just had enough. And then when he said on this one, let's just move past this and pretend it didn't happen, when something he knew this triggered me back then, it triggers me now. It's literally so traumatizing. Seeing this, I was this is up. Because you know what? They probably would be happy if I killed myself. Jeffree is that person who would be haha, bitch died. That's literally how he is. And it's and I think about that and it's just it's up.
We're now seeing Trisha and Ethan's audiences plus the newfound sort of frenemies audience mobilized against Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson, further diminishing their reputations. The rest of 2021 was Jeffree running around in Wyoming, doing Instagram stories and posts, claiming that he's so drama-free now that he's left California. When researching this video too, this is like completely random and kind of off topic. I was like looking through Jeffree's Instagram because we'll get to something that comes up later. This man has a Patrick Bateman American Psycho tattoo. And if that's not like a red flag, I don't know what is. Because also it's like Patrick Bateman like murdering scene tattoo. Anyway, Jeffree kept it pushing, as I mentioned. Posted to Instagram, things seemed to be pretty kind of chill. People just didn't care about him. He did release this absurdly horrifying NFT collection, and I would love if someone who had any idea how this works could track it down and figure out like how much it's worth now on the blockchain, because like most NFTs are like worthless now. So if someone could like figure that out for me though, that'd be like pretty epic. The rest of 2021, things were pretty quiet. And then early 2022, Jeffree Star released this collection called the Banana Fetish Collection, which was just a neutral palette with a yellow in it. Very kind of gives me the vibe of like the Kylie Cosmetics Stormy collection from like a really long time ago. With the collection, he had obviously the marketing images. Now, bananas are associated with animals usually. And the images were of only black men. And it was like very, very, very hypersexualized. Which, you know, people were outraged about. I can see why. I'm saying mostly that it was definitely a choice. Especially because Jeffree Star has famously had like racist marketing images. Insert this picture of Nikita Dragon looking like a different race entirely. And when I was looking at this, a bunch of the comments were like out of context, implying that they have like been scrubbed. And in June 2022, Jeffree Star went on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast, where Jeffree went on and on and on and on about all the straight men that he's pulled. Proof? Where? When? Who? I don't know. But he's just perpetuating, again, these sorts of kind of homophobic stereotypes. Point of controversy from this particular podcast was when Jeffree was claiming that the beauty community is dead because everyone is horrible, specifically to him. And people villainized him and Shane for having the biggest makeup launch ever. And he said that people would make up lies about him and Shane because they were mad about them being successful. It wasn't that someone came forward that Jeffree Star sexually assaulted them. It wasn't that Jeffree Star's horrible past and present and how he was treating people who had any criticism towards him in like aggressive Snapchat rants. It wasn't how he went about the drama in Dramageddon 1 and 2. It wasn't how Shane Dawson had videos literally like pretending to like off to an 11-year-old Willow Smith. It wasn't because of Shane's frantic squealing in regard to Tati Westbrook. It's not the manifesto that Shane Dawson wrote on Twitter. Like, there's a lot of reasons, girl, that are not related at all to the palette being successful. I guess the only thing you could argue in that regard is that people are saying it's ugly. But looking back on it, it is ugly. And also, the quality of it was bad. It was like kind of unusable. A lot of them, I would presume because of the speed of production, were like overpressed or underpressed and it would break. There was inconsistency issues. Mine was like aggressively overpressed where like pigment was not coming up out of a bunch of the shadows. I know for a fact that those quality issues do exist because my ego was too big to admit it because I had spent all that money on it and worked so hard to get it upon launch, but it was not like I got rid of it and not even because of the cancellation, because it was like I couldn't really afford to be buying eyeshadow when I was replacing it even, but it was just not working. Like it was, and then I had also only a couple of months after 3 different shades besides the ones that were already overpressed beginning to hit hard pan. So, and I kept my palette closed and in the box. So I don't want to hear none of that. Well, maybe you were leaving it open. It had like 2 like coffin latches on it. Like that thing stayed closed. Then the rest of 2022 ran in a 3rd Shane Dawson series with Jeffree Star where they go and visit the yak farm, but they kind of make it seem like they're going to talk about like and go into depth about this sort of like cancellation. There was another palette in the works that they never released. They showed like the shadow, like the choices of colors that were in it. And I'm really happy it wasn't released because that girl was ugly still as sin. I reviewed every episode on the channel, so I'm going to just link the first one down below, and then you can peruse them as you may. And I don't want to go into like huge detail because I've done like an hour and a half, 2 hours of content on it already. So like not much of noteworthy happens on that series besides, like I said, like the palette, the second palette, the shade like arrangement and color is revealed. Rylan and Shane went to Wyoming to visit the yak farm. And Jeffree Star says that he's quitting YouTube and moving to TikTok, which was like the biggest drama that came out of that. And it kind of did end up happening because now Jeffree Star only uploads on YouTube like his long form collection reveal videos. This is despite being like shady at Jaclyn Hill for doing the same thing. But I digress. This moves us into 2023, where one of the only notable things was Jeffree Star's sort of like I'm leaving the left era, where he goes on this Barstool podcast and a couple of other Barstool podcasts down the line as well, and talks about how stupid he thinks they them pronouns are, and how he is like above all of that, and like, oh, the new queer community with the Gen Zs is just like making everything into this sort of joke. And I can't clip it because Dave Portnoy is cringe and copyright hungry and abuses the copyright system. You can watch my video on it where I do clip it because I actually contested the claim, and then Dave just let it wait the month and expire. So you can watch my video on it linked in the description, but I'm not clipping it again because I'm not going to do this whole like wait a month for it to come back thing again for a second time. In 2023, Jeffree became dead set on a mission to become the king of TikTok, bringing his Jeffree Star Proof series there as well, and becoming like the king of TikTok Live, which this moves us into the third part of the video. Part 3, moving to TikTok and TikTok Livefest. We need to go back a bit in our memories for a second and remember how Jeffree Star blew up on YouTube. As I've mentioned already, the Jeffree Star Proof series, which the concept of this, for those of you who don't know, is Jeffree would get products either in PR or he would buy them. He would rate them on if he approved of them or if he didn't, kind of stating that he was too rich to need like sponsorship deals from the brands, and that he would therefore be one of the only honest beauty gurus. This is because people like Manny MUA, which he was still doing until like recently, and I don't even know if he still does because I just don't watch him. He would actually have like, this video was sponsored by NARS, and then he would have like NARS products, but he would be like, I'm going to be honest about it. But it's like, you can't really clearly be that honest because like you were paid to use the products in the video. Jeffree Star was essentially saying that because he's not doing that he is the only one that's honest. This was something that is really silly because a big part that people are neglecting when they're thinking about this is that he made his riches off of a makeup brand that he owns. And somehow will remain unbiased because like there's no stakes in the game for not recommending your competitors. That is to say, he did approve things though, but I found when I was looking back at this, he was often approving things that were not similar to products that he was making or there were products that were not in his line currently. This is hypothetically, allegedly in Minecraft. Thank you very much. And if it was just somebody, because the thing is like Jeffree Star's like more in the kind of more indie shadow kind of avenue. Like I'll show you what I mean. So this is a colorful eyeshadow palette from an indie brand, not open anymore, called Midas Cosmetics. And this is what the palette looks like, right? Kind of random arrangement, bright colors, kind of Jeffree Star vibes. This is closer to what his competitor would be like. And this is not to say that indie brands don't do neutral shadows. They very much do. But this is kind of more the speed of palettes you're going to get when you go to Sephora, right? So this is my Natasha Denona bronze palette. This is more kind of in vein with like what you're going to find, because trying to find something that looks like this at Sephora is a challenge. One of the only colorful palettes I can remember of recent history at Sephora was the Care Bear collection from Viseart, which is no longer there and was untouched and pretty unpopular looking from what I can remember. So this veil over the audience that was once over YouTube, but got lifted during the cancellations and people kind of getting a consciousness of Jeffree's actions, just essentially got worked well on TikTok and people were eating it up. I've actually seen more than one TikTok of people saying that like they know Jeffree is horrible and they know like they don't like him, but they're watching the Jeffree Star Approved series because he's the only honest beauty guru left because he's so rich and stuff. And I hope I can find some of them, and if I do, I will put them in. Then, as Jeffree Star kind of grew in popularity on TikTok, he began doing TikTok Live because that also is kind of where the money is. And of course, someone who is as cruel and hateful and cringe and awful in Minecraft as Jeffree Star, if they're live all the time, they're going to get into some controversy because he couldn't even stay out of it when the content was pre-recorded. I got this part wrong for some reason. I'm going through it. Don't come for me. Anyway, it wasn't what I said, so I just clipped all of it out. On Trisha's podcast, I believe it's that person Terry Joe or whatever on TikTok. Anyway, they asked Trisha about kind of everything with Jeffree, and then Trisha just said, like, I don't remember. And I will put in a little clip of that from TikTok right now. And that is what started this whole thing. I thought it was Tana, but it's not. I don't know why. It was because they also talked about him on the Cancelled podcast, but not to the same degree. Anyway.
Jeffree's cool.
Yeah.
I think we had I don't know, maybe we didn't have beef. I don't know. Sometimes you think about why did we fall out? Sometimes I forget.
This is Jeffree Star. So awful to me on his Vegas trip a year ago.
Romantic, fabulous getaway weekend with Jeffree Star in Vegas, which was so over the top and fun and amazing, and it was the best weekend of my life.
Jeffree's the one who said all those vile things. Jay was just stupid enough to repeat and confirm it online because he's his little minion. But Jeffree is also just as vile, so obviously trash is going to keep trash.
Jeffree's cool.
Yeah.
I think we
And then Trisha just essentially replies with, well, this was so long ago that I don't really remember what happened. We're in 2023 now, by the way, if I didn't say that. And she says, oh, it was just whatever. Like, say it happens, And she brushed it off because she didn't want it to kind of come back at her, especially because she had her kid and she's with Moses and she's kind of just trying to chill. So, remember HairbyJay and Trisha Paytas? Well, this person named Bunny, who also does a podcast, was supposed to have Trisha on. Trisha ditched last minute, like an hour before. Trisha texts her, I can't make it. I'm too busy. I'm sorry. Anyway, later, she has Jeffree Star on the podcast. This podcast is called the Dumb Blonde Podcast, by the way. Then Bunny says to Jeffree, oh, hey, I was supposed to have Trisha on, which clearly was antagonistic in nature. And Bunny goes in a TikTok response saying that's not what I was doing. I don't know why you would talk to somebody who's had a public falling out with Trisha Paytas and clearly is visceral towards Trisha Paytas and then be like, I wasn't trying to do anything. I feel like that's a little bit counterintuitive, dare I say, if not at best, and shady as at worst, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, at the very mention of Trisha Paytas, Jeffree Star starts yap. At the very mention of Trisha Paytas, Jeffree Star starts yap, running his mouth about how she dragged him through the mud. She lied about him and his friend. He did so much for her, paid for the trip. This is after Trisha said too that tons of times I was trying to pay for stuff. He was just saying no. And saying it was all lies, despite the fact that the HairbyJay Instagram Live, which was unprompted, really, was him corroborating all the stuff that Trisha said he did.
Cross paths somewhere down the road and be able to,
Me and Trisha, maybe.
Yeah.
Trisha she did me and Jay wrong and made up a whole drama.
Yeah.
And then had a kid.
Trisha actually flaked on me yesterday. I came off tour to do her podcast with her. Well, to do her podcast and her come on my podcast. And she texted me an hour before she was supposed to show up that she wasn't coming.
That's so unprofessional.
I know, but just, it is what it is, and everything.
Well, I normally don't talk about drama because the old Jeffree, people just think things so differently than who I am.
Yeah.
So I just kind of stray away from that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I don't like feeding into these things.
No, never.
But she did me really wrong.
Oh.
She made up all these lies, said I fat shamed her and called her all these things. Never happened.
Right.
Never happened. And then
Do
she
you
gets
think
in a fight.
Was looking for clout too?
Of course she was. That was her shtick.
Right.
And it was at a time where people wanted to hate me and Shane Dawson.
Right.
So she picks a huge fight with my hairdresser, Jay, right here, and it just turned into a bloodbath.
So if the guy that she's lying about admits that it was true, then who's lying? So on a TikTok live, also later, this is around 5-6 months ago now, so we're in like the late summer, September-ish. Jeffree is raging about Trisha on TikTok live because she downplayed what happened. He's like swearing up a storm. He's like, that bitch, you know what she did to me? Talking about someone like a woman like that too, you know, a little bit sus, but even though it is Trisha Paytas. And she literally said, and I'm not a Trisha Paytas fan by any means. I have multiple videos like being very critical of Trisha Paytas. It is just so strange to me, though, that he's gone to this length to essentially slander her, if not be just very hateful towards her, despite the fact that she was trying to downplay it so that he would be left alone. After this, Jeffree Star also dives into his conspiracy era, as do most right-wingers with a horde of over 100 guns. He's saying recently some misogynoir stuff about Michelle Obama being a man, and says the sun isn't as far away as they say it is, which is, what's the point of that? Who knows? And if you don't know what misogynoir is essentially like misogyny directed towards Black women specifically. And this includes things like comparing Black women to animals, calling them manly, the sort of concept that like Black women don't feel pain the same way. It's a set of systems that kind of come into place with like intersectional prejudices that exist in the sense of like, you have like obviously racism, then you have like sexism, misogyny, and then you can have like, obviously if you're queer too on top of that, that's the homophobia, transphobia, etc. that can come into place, and it kind of, you know, combines. So Nick Duramio explains it in his video, and I'm going to insert that clip in now.
Despite all of his racist scandals, he still has no idea when the conspiracy theory that he's touting to get a laugh on some podcast is directly tied to misogynoir. Misogynoir, as I read more and more over the last few years, is a term coined by a Black feminist American academic, Moya Bailey, in 2010, defining it to describe the particular brand of hatred directed at Black women in American visual and popular culture. There is misogyny, but there's a specific type of misogyny that Black women are subjected to that is uniquely detrimental to Black women. Like, Black women, if you think about in politics or in sports, they're met with criticism nearly every single time they do anything. Michelle Obama and her arms, Condoleezza Rice, Omarosa from Donald Trump thing. They cite in one article Serena Williams being a strong example of this. Like, she has been called by the president of the National Tennis Association potentially one of the greatest living athletes of all time. And yet, when you look online, it's basically people comparing her to a gorilla or calling her manly and saying that's why she doesn't get endorsement deals. It's really disgusting. People criticize Black women in ways that I now realize stereotypes them and perpetuates these ideas that are really toxic, like that Black women's bodies are meant to be shown in a hypersexualized way. Otherwise, if they're not there for the male gaze or sexual desire, they're mannish or trans, which is obviously inherently transphobic as well. Then people will unwittingly dehumanize them by making these horrible comparisons to animalistic properties or the trope of the strong Black woman, which are basically like supporting the racist idea that Americans have that Black bodies are somehow more strong or more aggressive or uncontrollable, which also brings in the stereotype of the angry Black woman, which can often be used to dismiss the feelings or invalidate the pain of Black women. Of all of the awful behavior we saw from Jeffree Star today, this is the most alarming.
For the very last part of the video on what Jeffree Star's been up to, we're going to go into his most recent controversy of TikTok Livefest. So first, I need to explain the concept of what people are referring to when they say a recycler on TikTok. So when people donate to someone on TikTok, they buy them gifts, right? So essentially this money goes into a pool on your account on TikTok. The funds then are kind of sitting there until you choose to withdraw them. If you are somebody who has funds in that account, you can actually, instead of withdrawing them for money, you can use them to donate to other TikTokers and gift them stuff. A recycler is someone who helps their friends by dumping this huge lump sum of gifts, let's say like $300 of gifts, to their friend at the battle right at the end so that they win. On another battle, the friend that just got the $300 sends it back to the person who gave them the money at the end of their battle so they win. So you're not really spending your own money. Rather, you're spending kind of this like same chunk of money and moving it around. That's what the allegation of a recycler means. When people accused Jeffree Star of doing this, he got very angry and aggressive. I can only assume it's because the only part of Jeffree Star's personality that has remained consistently intact and isn't lied about to the same degree is that he's rich. So at the very accusation that he could be acting like one of the poors, he goes absolutely ballistic. And I think that's something that calls to this deep set insecurity that he has. So if we go back to Jeffree Star's MySpace days, circa early 2000s and 2010s, something that Jeffree used to get into trouble with a lot, and he would always criticize people for bringing back up because it was so long ago, is that he would have these videos on MySpace where he's like running down the street and he'd be like, and people would be mean to him or something, and he would like scream slurs at them. Well, in the Lord's year 2023, and at the end of 2023, I may add, Jeffree goes back to the classics and this time viscerally screams the F slur at somebody in a hateful way. Even, and again, you can argue about like, oh, well, if you're gay, you can use it and reclaiming things. I understand that. But I don't know. That would just be there when you're using it without satire, without kind of functional context around it, and you're using it to insult someone, it still holds that meaning. It was just how nice it slipped out. You know, and I guess maybe this wasn't covered as much because at least he swapped out the N word for the F word. It really rings true that the old Jeffree has never left, this thing that people have been insisting on for years and years, and Jeffree has just tried to lie in circles around. So Echofin, I think that's the creator's name, was a creator on TikTok who was at the Livefest and everything, and he was live, and he finds Jeffree Star, and he's like, ooh, the recycler is here. Ooh, recyclers, because it was like Jeffree Star and this group of friends he had on TikTok Live that were doing it. To which then Jeffree Star screams the F slur at.
Now, in this video, which I'm not going to play because there are a ton of epithets being said, this person who's exposing the recyclers calls out Jeffree Star and basically said, this is the biggest recycler. Basically, he takes his money, recycles it back to his favorite creators or himself, never spending an additional dime and moving his way up the rankings. And of course, Jeffree Star wasn't having it, called him the F slur and a bunch of other stuff. And you can just check out the video. It's literally floating all over TikTok. Now,
Jeffree Star was live at one point and someone like taps him on the shoulder and you can see that someone else is live and you can see or hear in the background Jeffree Star scream the C word at them. So Jeffree Star is just raging and screaming at people at this event, and there's a point where you see him get escorted out by security. So he's being aggressive, if not violent, at these events. But the old Jeffree's dead. God, this man is like pathetic. It's like actually shocks me. Like I always think that it couldn't get worse, and then it does. A couple people came out that they were being yelled at. One woman said that it was because she just barely tapped on the shoulder because the room was really loud, and she wanted to say hi to him. Jeffree Star also did an event for Jeffree Star Cosmetics later, where someone named Charlie from 7 Blended, which was her TikTok, who also went live a lot, was invited, and she was live at the event, which apparently pissed Jeffree off big time. He said, then he lies, because there's no evidence to corroborate this at all. He lies that he said the lady was drunk and harassing him when you can see on her own live that she was doing at the time that she wasn't even near him. And again, at worst, like tapped him on the shoulder. He's like calling her the C word and stuff. And then he goes on this live and he's claiming that he has this video of this woman screaming at her kid in a hotel room.
I'm on camera. I'm on live, girl. Okay. Yo, someone is drunk harassing us. They're like, don't tap me like a dog, Miss Thing. Okay, it's giving human space. Don't walk up to us like that, girl. You're gonna get beat. Y'all, if you've never met someone before, don't touch them. That's my only rule. If you've never met someone before, do not touch them.
But he's also said earlier that day that like, oh, if you don't know someone, don't touch them. And he's referring to this lady, Charlie. So if you don't know them, how do you possess this alleged blackmail video? Charlie was actually so confused that she's like, I don't even know what he's talking about. Like, I genuinely don't even know what could have possibly been in reference to this. And this calls back again to old Jeffree, where at the Dramageddon thing, Jeffree, Dramageddon 2 with James Charles, when like allegedly like he was trying to like prey on straight men, something that Jeffree does constantly. Again, why are you the beacon of morality here anyway? And he says that he had proof that I believe it was Grayson Dolan felt that he was being harassed by James Charles, but he never released it. He just held it up as blackmail. This credibility that you supposedly have to release these videos is more than dead. So I really don't think you know what's going on or what you're trying to do here. You're just looking like a pathetic 38-year-old loser who just happens to be sitting on a lot of money, but lives within the prison of the life that they built for themselves. And I think that's the position that a lot of people are realizing now with his just tarnished reputation online. To conclude, I'm going to summarize our little journey again. We show that Jeffree has not changed at all from his most dramatic days on YouTube and MySpace. And we go into some of his final YouTube conflicts, as well as the sort of decline of Jeffree Star Cosmetics and the move to TikTok Live, begging for the pennies of the poors at the Yak Ranch. Thank you again to Aura for sponsoring this video. Links, sources, email, all that kind of stuff, all down below. Ways to support the channel as well. Thank you to my patrons and members. And I hope y'all have an amazing day. And I'll see you when I see you. Bye.
Hello? Ho, the things that you've lied about, even pertaining